Guys, let's talk about mixing paints to create your color wheel. So for this, I'm using acrylic paints, and this is just a mixing container I have. You can use any sort of plate, paper, styrofoam, a real plate, just a scrap piece of paper, anything to mix your paints on. Definitely going to want a water cup for rinsing out your paintbrush, paper towel, a brush, obviously, and something to paint on. For this video, I'm just going to talk about how to mix the colors. If you want to know more details about the color wheel project and what you can do for it, watch the next video. So before I start mixing my colors, I want to draw out where I'm going to put those colors. For this video, I'm just going to do a very simple color wheel. So I'm going to give myself a nice big circle. It is okay if your circle is not perfect. That is fine. Now, we need to split the circle into 12 sections total. First thing I want to do is cut in half that way. So I split it in half, and then I'm going to split it into quarters. So I have 4 sections. We know 4 goes into 12 3 times, so I'm going to split each of these into 3 wedges. Now here's the trick for that. Let's start with this top one up here. If I only look at just this quarter, if I look at this outer edge, if I split that into 3, I'm just going to eyeball it and try to guess about 3 even lengths. If I then go from that point through the center point, all the way through my paper, all the way through the circle, it will split it up nicely for me. If you have a ruler to use as a straight edge, I highly recommend. So, end point, middle point, connect, draw the line. Same again, end point, middle point, connect them, draw the line. The key thing here is you got to go through the center. I'm going to do the same thing for up here. So take this line, split it into thirds. There we go, they're about the same. Connect that point through the center, line all the way across. And then that point through the center, line all the way across. And that is how you split your paper into 12 sections. I also like to lightly label each section so I know what color is going to go where. So I'm going to go yellow, yellow orange, orange, red orange, red, red purple, purple, blue purple, blue, blue green, green, yellow green. There we go. Now I know which color is going where. So let's talk about mixing those colors. First off, we know our 3 primary colors, yellow, red, and blue. These are primary because nothing can be used to make them, but these 3 colors can make every other color in the color wheel. So, since nothing can be used to make them, I'm going to paint in my primary sections now and get them out of the way. Okay, so if you spaced out your colors correctly, there should be 3 wedges in between each of the primaries. Let's get started with our oranges first. So we're gonna have yellow orange, orange, and red orange. I recommend paying attention to the mixing guide handout to help you out with your proportions for this, but I'm gonna go through it step by step. First, let's look at yellow orange. Yellow is a much weaker color than red. So that means yellow gets overpowered really easily. So that means we want to make sure we have a lot of yellow and we slowly add the little bits of red to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a little pile of my yellow, and then I'm going to take just the tiniest dot of red to mix into it. Now I really emphasize the tiniest dot. You have to start very small for this. If you put in too much red in the beginning, it'll overpower the yellow. So I'm going to take my brush and I'm just going to add the tiniest bit. If you look closely, there's barely anything on that brush. I honestly might even wipe off a lot of it still. Barely anything on that brush. And I'm going to mix it into this yellow. And that happened to make a very nice yellow-orange for me. If I would have added too much red, it would have gone straight to orange or even red-orange too fast. So here's what that yellow-orange should look like. If yours didn't turn out perfect the first time, like most of yours probably won't. If it's too orangey, add more yellow. If it's too yellowy, looks too much like the yellow, add a little bit more red. It takes a little bit of practice going back and forth. That is okay. You might not get it the first time. You probably won't get it the first time. It takes practice. The fact that I got that yellow-orange right the first time, that's honestly really rare for me. All right, so we got our yellow-orange. Now, for the orange, we want to have a little bit more red. So it's still going to be a pretty small amount. In the mixing guide, you will see that it is closer to half and half, but in reality, yellow is so weak, it's going to be more yellow than red still. I'm going to put it in the exact same mixing spot just to make my life easier. So again, blob of yellow. Wipe off that extra. Then I'm going to go a little bit more red this time. It's easier to start small and then add more. It's really hard if you overdo it too fast. So this one, we want it to look more like a pumpkin. Now, if I look at this one, it's definitely different than my first one. It does not look like the yellow-orange, but it looks like it has a little too much red in it. It's not really a pumpkin. So I'm going to rinse my brush, and I'm going to add a little bit more yellow into it. Take some practice, guys. There we go. I like that a lot better. Paint my yellow section, or orange section. I find that oranges are one of the hardest sets of colors to make because that yellow gets overdone and taken over so fast. So really be careful and stop and look at your color. Does it make sense? Does it actually look like it's supposed to? Go back and look at that mixing guide that I attached and double check to make sure your colors look the right way. Now, last up is my red orange. Now I still have a bit of this orange left in this container. So instead of having to add more yellow to it to start fresh, I can just add more red to this and just change this orange into red orange. So for red orange, definitely has a lot more red to it. So I'm going to put it in a pretty big blob. But again, still remember, yellow's kind of weak, so don't overdo it. I don't want it to look like straight red. I still want to be able to tell that it has some orange to it. So if I put my brush next to the red, they should not look exactly the same. They're close, but not the same. That'll work perfect. I'm going to paint this section. All right, now I'm going to go into the greens next. So we got yellow green, green, and blue green. Myself a new little section here. So just like before, yellow is my weakest color. Blue is a very strong color. Since it's even stronger than red, as I mix these greens, I want to use even less blue when I mix into that yellow because that blue is going to overdo it. So again, I give myself a pile of that yellow. There we go. And I want the tiniest dot of blue. Always make sure you rinse out your brush between colors. All right, tiniest little bit. I'm gonna wipe off most of it. Tiny, tiny, tiny amount of blue. Mix it in. So for yellow green, we're looking for what's more commonly known as lime green. Yellow green and lime green are the same thing. Ooh, that worked out perfect. You guys see how that blue was barely on my brush, but yet it totally changed that color. It's because blue is so strong and yellow is so weak. And get that one painted. Now I know by looking at my mixing guide, to make green, it's closer to even amounts of yellow and blue. So that means if I just add a little bit more blue to my yellow-green, it's going to make me green. Oops, water spot. Now again, remember, blue is very strong. Don't overdo it. We're trying to look for the color of grass for this one. There we go. I'd say that does look like grass. It never works this easily. Remember, if it looks too yellowy, too much like the lime green or yellow green, add more blue. If it looks too much like turquoise, add more yellow till it gets the right color. Last of our greens is the blue green. We usually think of this as turquoise. Turquoise or blue green is a lot of blue, a little bit of yellow. So again, to make my cleanup life easier, I can just take my green and just add more blue to it. Why make another spot dirty if I don't have to? Now blue-green has a lot of blue into it, so I'm going to get a pretty big dollop for this one, but definitely not more than what I already have of green. Mix that in. We're looking for a nice turquoise color for this. Make sure if it looks too much like blue, add a little bit of yellow back. If it looks too much like green, add more blue. Actually turned out quite nice. All right, I got one set of colors left. These are my purples, blue purple, purple, and red purple. Now, if I look at my water right now, it's kind of a brown color. When you notice your water starting to look brown, that is a note that you need to rinse it out. Go get some fresh water. There we go, fresh water. So, last up is my purples. Blue purple, purple, red purple. Remember, purple means the same thing as violet. So if you ever see the word violet, it's just purple. For these, red and blue are both fairly strong, but blue is still stronger. So I recommend starting on the red side. Start with red purple, then end with blue purple. Okay, give myself a clean spot. Just like before, I want to move some of my red into a new clean spot. Okay, and we look at that mixing guide. Red purple is a lot of red, a little bit of blue. So I'm going to take a little bit of blue, mix that in. All right, if I look at it now, that's too similar to the red. I think this needs more blue added to it. It's not purpley enough for me. There we go. That looks much better. So red, purple. Now, you might have this exact same problem that I did. Purple is a pretty hard color to get good at home if you don't have the right red and the right blue. It's kind of a pain that way. So, if you're upset that it doesn't look very much like red purple, just know you are not alone. Purples are very hard to do, and it's about the material that you're making your colors with. It has nothing to do with you. If you look at mine, it kind of looks more brown-like than purple, but it is purple. Okay? So it all has to do with the material, the types of paints that you are using. I purposely use more of a red and blue that you guys would have so you could see this and know that you are not alone. All right, next up is regular purple. So if I take this red purple, just add more blue to it. Now again, since red and blue are so similar with their powers, I'm adding a pretty big chunk of blue. Sometimes purples, they don't like to show up when they're really thick. So what I'll do to check sometimes is to spread it out with my finger. So that way the color is a little thinner, or I could add a little water to it. Again, it just has to do with your paints. What's happening is that the red that I have is the wrong type of red to make purples. I know that sounds really weird to think about, but you can have a warm red or a cool red. You know, like when you go to the art store, maybe Michael's, or even just down the art aisle of Walmart or somewhere like that, there are so many different versions of colors. Even the primary colors. Different versions of those primaries will make colors better than others. Let me show you some of mine. So if we look at my reds, all three of these are all labeled as red. Cadmium red, deep hue, cadmium red medium hue, naphthalene crimson. They're all reds, but they all look very different, right? This red is a warm red, so that means it is more closer to the oranges and the yellows. This red is a cool red, which means it's closer to the blues. So if you're trying to mix a really good orange, you'd want a warm red. If you're trying to mix a really good purple, you'd want a cool red. Now, I purposely chose the one in the middle for my example, just so you can kind of see how it looks, because that's what most people have. If I wanted to make a much better purple, I would use this one. I'll show you a little example here. Here is that deep crimson or cool purple or cool red used to make a purple, and see how they turn out different. See how that one has a lot more blue in it? It all just depends on the brand. So I don't want you getting frustrated if purples are harder to make. It is not you. It's the color. It's the paint. It has to do with the brands. If we were at school, I have a pretty good brand that works well for making purples, but I know not everybody's going to have it at home. So if your purples are not exactly right, do not worry. You're not going to get marked down for that. All right, last up is our blue purple. We know that's going to be a lot of blue into what's already our purple. So I'm going to take a big dollop. I'm going to use that original red like we did in the beginning, just to keep it all the same. Now it's kind of cool. Since my blue purple has so much more of that blue in it that we like, it ended up turning out to be a better purple, whereas the purple and red purple had way more red in it. So it's just funny how colors work out that way. And there we go. That is how you mix all 12 colors of the color wheel. Now, it is really good to know how to mix these colors, because sometimes you may not have the exact color you want, and knowing how to make them is key. And yes, I know, you can buy oranges and greens and purples in the store, and they might turn out better. But you gotta be able to know how to do it in the first place before you take the easy way out. Just like in math. You had to learn how to add things together before you were allowed a calculator, right? Same thing with art. You gotta learn how to mix those colors yourself before you're just given the color for free.